Throughout history, there have been moments, dark, strange, and often unsettling, that defy explanation. From ancient civilizations to modern times, there are events, discoveries, and disappearances that remain shrouded in mystery. What happened to the lost city of Atlantis? How did the Voynich manuscript survive centuries, still unreadable? And what could possibly explain the eerie silence of the Dyatlov Pass? These questions, and many more, have confounded even the most brilliant minds. Tonight, we journey into the unknown, uncovering some of the most perplexing enigmas in history, each one a whisper from the past, waiting to be heard. Welcome to the weirdest mysteries in history. In the year 29 BC, amidst the heat of the Roman Empire's territorial expansions, a soldier from the Roman army was stationed in the region of Palestine, near the borders of the ancient kingdom of Judea. His name was Gaius Plinius, a name now almost lost to time, but his story has left behind a trace of something far stranger, an event that would both confound and fascinate historians for millennia. Plinius claimed to have walked into another sky. The account begins on a relatively ordinary day. Plinius, as part of his duty, was sent to patrol the outer edges of the empire's territory. The land was rugged, the air thick with the scent of earth and salt from the distant Mediterranean, and the heat unbearable for any soldier who found themselves too far from the comfort of the camp. It was here, on a seemingly routine journey, that he first reported the inexplicable event that would haunt him for the rest of his life. As he and his unit passed through a narrow pass in the rugged hills, Plinius claimed to have experienced a sensation so intense, so unearthly, that it felt as if the very fabric of reality had torn around him. In an instant, the landscape he knew, rocky, arid, bathed in the harsh light of the Palestinian sun, shifted. According to his account, the sky above him transformed into something completely alien, as if he had stepped into another dimension altogether. The air was cooler, the colors of the horizon more vibrant, and the very ground beneath his feet felt foreign to him, despite his intimate knowledge of the terrain. Plinius described this strange other sky in such detail that his account has intrigued scholars for centuries. Some dismiss his words as the product of a fatigued mind, ravaged by the heat and isolation of the harsh landscape. Others, however, have speculated that there may be something more to his experience, something that defies the simple explanations of tiredness or hallucination. The ancient texts offer no clear resolution to the mystery. Plinius's story was not isolated. Throughout the Roman Empire, soldiers and travelers told similar tales of visions, strange landscapes, and encounters with realms that were not bound by the laws of nature as they understood them. Was Plinius truly describing a physical event, or was he recounting something deeper, something spiritual? Could this be a glimpse into a world beyond our own, or was it merely the fevered delusion of a man far from home? There are a number of plausible explanations for what Plinius might have experienced. One theory suggests that he could have encountered a rare atmospheric phenomenon known as a supernumerary rainbow, a phenomenon where light refracts in such a way that it creates unusual and vivid displays in the sky. Another theory proposes that Plinius's other sky was merely the result of a psychological breakdown, brought on by the extreme stress and isolation of his military duties. The harsh conditions of the desert, combined with the pressure of Roman warfare, could have induced hallucinations. But even these rational explanations leave one question lingering. Why would a man, so embedded in the Roman military and its values, speak so plainly and earnestly about something so extraordinary if he had not truly experienced it? Some have even ventured into more speculative territory, suggesting that Plinius may have encountered an unknown, even supernatural force, perhaps an ancient portal or rift between worlds. Could the other sky have been a glimpse into another time or place, beyond the boundaries of human understanding? Was Plinius a witness to a momentary tear in the fabric of reality, a fracture that only those at the edges of the Roman Empire might have witnessed? Despite centuries of exploration and debate, no definitive answer has surfaced. The Roman soldier's strange tale continues to haunt those who study the ancient world, a thread of uncertainty woven into the tapestry of Roman history. Perhaps, in the end, the truth is elusive because the very nature of his experience was beyond what we can understand today. What did Plinius truly see? Was it a divine vision, a momentary madness, or something else entirely? The question remains unanswered, and perhaps, like the mysteries that often lie hidden in the annals of history, it is a question we may never fully solve. As we journey deeper into the ancient world, we encounter a peculiar mystery that has puzzled historians, archaeologists, and scholars for centuries. It is a phenomenon that centers on the grand temples of Rome, structures dedicated to gods, heroes, and emperors. These temples, towering and majestic, were more than just places of worship. They were symbols of the power and divinity that permeated Roman life. But there is one particular aspect of these temples that has never been fully explained: the self-moving statues. In the heart of ancient Rome, within the sprawling complexes of marble and stone, reports began to surface. Stories of statues, some centuries old, that seemed to move of their own accord. These were not mere legends or folklore. The records are detailed, written by respected historians and philosophers, chronicling strange events that took place in the most sacred of places. One such account comes from the Roman writer Pliny the Elder, who, in his Natural History, describes a statue of the god Jupiter in the temple at Ostia, a port city near Rome. Pliny writes that the statue, made of marble and enshrined in the temple for generations, was reported to have moved, slightly shifting its position as though it had a will of its own. Other writings from the period tell of similar events occurring across the empire, from the grand temple of Juno Sospita in Lanuvium to the temple of Apollo in Delphi, where statues, including those of the gods and heroes of Roman legend, were said to change their posture or orientation in ways that defied natural explanation. In some instances, these statues were reported to have shifted by mere inches. In others, the movement was more dramatic. One particularly eerie account from the Temple of Diana in Ephesus tells of a statue whose hand was seen to stretch outward, as if reaching for something, or someone. The priests who maintained the temples often reacted in astonishment and, in some cases, attributed the movements to divine intervention. Were the gods themselves sending a message to the faithful? But what could have caused such movements? Many historians and scientists have attempted to rationalize the phenomenon. The most common explanation is that the statues, made from materials like marble or bronze, might have been affected by natural environmental factors, such as shifts in temperature or humidity. The idea is that the temperature fluctuations in the temples, caused by the transition from the intense heat of the Roman summer to the cooler nights, could have caused the materials to expand or contract, leading to slight shifts in position. Could this be the explanation for these mysterious movements? Simple natural physical processes? Yet, even in the face of such plausible scientific reasoning, there remains something deeply unsettling about these accounts. Could the recorded movements be the result of sophisticated engineering or trickery? The Romans were masters of technology, capable of creating intricate mechanisms for stage performances, rituals, and even automata. Perhaps some of the statues were part of a grand illusion, designed to give the impression that the gods themselves were interacting with the faithful. Could these self-moving statues have been clever machines, powered by hidden devices and pulleys? But there are other theories, more speculative in nature, that venture into the realm of the supernatural or the unexplained. Could these statues have been imbued with some form of ancient energy, something the Romans themselves understood but we have lost over the millennia? Was there something more mystical at play? Something beyond the limitations of our modern understanding? The idea that these statues were not mere objects, but conduits for divine power or portals to another realm, is a theory that still persists in certain circles. The mystery of the self-moving statues remains unresolved. Despite centuries of investigation, no definitive answer has emerged. The truth may be as elusive as the divine forces the Romans believed controlled their world. Could these movements have been the result of natural phenomena, cleverly orchestrated mechanisms, or something far more mysterious? Perhaps we will never know for certain. As we reflect on these enigmatic accounts, we are left with more questions than answers. Was it simply the work of ancient engineers with a deep knowledge of physics, or is there something deeper, something hidden within the stones of these temples, waiting to be uncovered? What other secrets from the ancient world remain just beyond our reach, waiting to reveal themselves? As we continue our journey through history's strangest enigmas, we turn our attention to a discovery buried deep beneath the earth, a sealed underground chamber beneath an early Chinese tomb, a mystery that has fascinated archaeologists and scholars for decades. The tomb in question lies in the heart of Shandong province, where a burial site dating back to around the 3rd century BC remained largely untouched until the modern era. Within it, an astonishing find was made, one that continues to raise questions about the ancient world. In 1973, workers, during the excavation of an ancient tomb, stumbled upon an extraordinary structure, a hidden underground chamber, sealed tightly for over 2 millennia. The tomb itself was that of a noble from the Qi state, one of the ancient Chinese states predating the rise of the unified Qin dynasty. The tomb had been designed to honor a person of considerable importance, and its contents suggested wealth and power, with intricate jade artifacts, pottery, and bronze weapons. But it was the hidden chamber beneath that caught the attention of the excavators, and ultimately, the world. The chamber, embedded several meters beneath the tomb, was sealed so perfectly that it had remained undiscovered for thousands of years. Unlike many tombs, which had been looted or disturbed by grave robbers, this chamber appeared untouched by time or human hands. Its contents were not immediately clear. What was it? Why had this space been so carefully hidden? What, or who, had it been intended to protect or conceal? The tomb's main chamber was impressive in its own right, filled with valuable items meant to accompany the deceased into the afterlife. Yet this sealed chamber, hidden beneath the earth, suggested there was something more. Could it have been a final resting place for an even more powerful individual? Perhaps someone of greater importance than the noble already buried in the tomb? Or was it a symbolic space, a crypt reserved for a deity, a spirit, or an object of significant spiritual or political power? Upon further inspection, it became clear that the underground chamber had been designed with an extraordinary level of precision. The walls of the chamber were constructed from thick stone, and its entrance had been sealed with a carefully placed stone slab that was almost impervious to any kind of entry. The tomb's design, seemingly an afterthought beneath the main burial site, pointed to a deliberate effort to keep its contents concealed. Some archaeologists suggest that this secret chamber might have been used to store valuable relics, such as sacred texts, ceremonial objects, or treasures meant to accompany the deceased into the afterlife. Others argue that it could have been an escape route, or perhaps a space for conducting private rituals or sacrifices, rituals so secretive that they warranted being hidden from the outside world. There is also the possibility that this chamber was created for some kind of ceremonial purpose, perhaps even related to the eventual emergence of the first emperor of China, Qin Shi Huang, whose tomb, with its famous terracotta army, was constructed just a century later. But as scholars continue to examine the site, the questions only deepen. The tomb and its hidden chamber were unlike anything else found from that era. The construction methods used were advanced and precise, almost too advanced for their time. Did the tomb reflect a unique burial custom, or was it part of a greater, now lost tradition? Some have wondered if the sealed chamber might have been a form of early preservation, a kind of vault meant to protect sacred or powerful artifacts from the ravages of time and human greed. Others speculate that the chamber may have been linked to early forms of alchemy, with the objects inside possibly serving as ingredients for ritual practices aimed at achieving immortality. Perhaps most perplexing of all is the fact that the chamber was so meticulously hidden. Why go to such lengths to ensure that it would never be found? Was it a message? A sign of something greater that has since been lost to history? Or was it a simple precaution, designed to protect the tomb's contents from being disturbed by those who might come after? The sealed underground chamber beneath the early Chinese tomb remains an enigma. Despite the best efforts of modern archaeologists, the chamber has yet to yield a definitive explanation for its existence or purpose. Its secrets remain sealed in the quiet depths beneath the earth, waiting for the day when they might finally be revealed. The mystery persists. What lay hidden in that chamber? Was it a secret so powerful that it had to be concealed from the world for centuries? Or is there something deeper at play? Something we are not yet able to understand. As we continue to unearth the past, some mysteries, it seems, are meant to remain just out of reach. As we delve deeper into the strange and inexplicable, we now turn to a peculiar account passed down from the ancient Greek travelers who ventured into the vast deserts of Arabia. Among the many marvels they encountered in this unfamiliar land, one of the most bizarre and unsettling was a cave, described as breathing. The story of this enigmatic cave, which has been passed down through historical texts, remains one of the most enduring and perplexing mysteries from the ancient world. The Greek philosopher Herodotus, often referred to as the father of history, was one of the first to write about the phenomenon, recording a curious and chilling tale from his travels. In his accounts, he described a cavern hidden in the deep recesses of the Arabian desert, whose entrance seemed to inhale and exhale like a living creature. The Greeks, known for their keen observations, had a fascination with the natural world, but even they were unable to explain the behavior of this cave. The entrance, they reported, appeared to draw in the air during one moment and expel it moments later, like a lung in rhythm with some ancient pulse. This breath, rhythmic and eerie, left them deeply unsettled. The cave's very existence seemed to defy the logic of nature, provoking both awe and fear. What could account for such an occurrence? Was it the result of some unknown geological formation, or was it something more mystical, a phenomenon beyond human understanding? The travelers of Herodotus's time, for whom the world was filled with strange and unexplained forces, could not have imagined the possibilities of modern science. Yet, even today, the breathing cave remains a subject of intrigue. Several centuries after Herodotus, other Greek and Roman travelers, including Strabo and Pliny the Elder, would recount similar stories. These accounts were consistent in their description of the cave's strange behavior, suggesting that the breathing was not an isolated legend, but something that was observed by multiple independent sources. However, these travelers also provided little in the way of explanation. To them, the phenomenon was more than a mere curiosity. It was a mystery that tugged at the limits of reason. Was it an omen? A gateway to another world? Or was it simply an unusual quirk of nature that the ancients could not fully comprehend? Many modern scientists have attempted to offer logical explanations for the strange reports. One widely proposed theory is that the cave's breathing could be caused by the movement of air through a natural system of passages or cracks in the earth. The intense heat of the desert and the cooling winds of the night might cause fluctuations in air pressure, leading to a rhythm of inhalation and exhalation at the cave's entrance. This type of atmospheric pressure system could potentially create the illusion of a breathing entity. Such phenomena have been observed in other parts of the world, where caves, tunnels, and rock formations produce similar, albeit more subtle, effects. However, there are elements of the story that refuse to align neatly with this theory. The reports were often more dramatic in their descriptions, with some travelers noting that the sound and force of the air rushing in and out seemed almost unnatural, more akin to the breath of some unseen living creature than a simple fluctuation in temperature. Could there be something more to the tale? Something the ancients were picking up on that our modern explanations miss? Were they describing a phenomenon that might have had spiritual significance? An event so profound that they gave it meaning beyond the physical? Another theory suggests that the breathing cave could have been a symbolic or sacred location for the local people, who might have imbued it with meaning far beyond its physical reality. In the ancient world, caves were often seen as gateways to the underworld, places of mystery and transformation. Could the travelers have been witnessing a ritual or ceremonial act that involved sound and air, something that was designed to create a sense of connection between the living and the divine? The idea that caves serve as metaphysical thresholds to other realms is a motif present in many ancient cultures. Perhaps this breathing cave was a place where the very air seemed to embody the spirit of the land itself. Even after all these years, the true nature of the cave remains unknown. Is there a hidden, natural explanation that we have yet to uncover, or does the mystery lie deeper, an inexplicable force of nature that no one has yet been able to explain fully? Could the ancient travelers have been describing something far more profound than we are able to grasp today? And perhaps most intriguingly, could there still be similar places hidden in the deserts of Arabia, waiting to be rediscovered? The breathing cave remains one of those rare and enigmatic stories that teases the boundaries of knowledge, inviting us to look deeper into the unknown. What else could the ancient travelers have witnessed that still eludes our understanding? What mysteries of the earth, concealed in its most remote corners, might still breathe with secrets waiting to be discovered? As we continue our exploration of history's strangest enigmas, we now turn our attention to the mysterious disappearance of an island, one that was once said to exist in the waters of the Arabian Sea, near the coast of Palestine. The island of Iabadiu has captured the imagination of historians, sailors, and explorers for centuries, yet despite numerous references to it in ancient texts, there is no conclusive evidence that it ever truly existed, at least not in the way it was once described. The first known references to Iabadiu appear in the writings of Greek and Roman geographers from around the 1st century BC. According to these accounts, Iabadiu was a lush, fertile island, strategically positioned between the Red Sea and the open waters of the Indian Ocean. It was said to be a thriving place, rich with vegetation, wildlife, and valuable resources. Some ancient writers went so far as to describe the island as a paradise, with abundant crops and a small, yet prosperous population. It seemed like a perfect haven, an oasis amidst the vastness of the ocean. But the most striking detail in these early accounts is that the island of Iabadiu seemed to vanish almost as mysteriously as it had appeared. By the 2nd century AD, when later navigators began to chart the waters of the Arabian Sea, Iabadiu was nowhere to be found. Despite the earlier glowing descriptions, no one could pinpoint its exact location. Some ancient travelers speculated that the island had been swallowed by the sea, perhaps a victim of an earthquake or some other natural disaster. But the loss of Iabadiu remained as mysterious as its sudden emergence. The ancient Greek historian Strabo and the Roman geographer Ptolemy both mentioned the island in their writings, and they too were baffled by its disappearance. For centuries, its existence was assumed to be a part of ancient myth, a legend, a cautionary tale, or perhaps even a simple mistake in navigation. But the lingering question remains: if Iabadiu truly existed, where did it go? Some have speculated that Iabadiu may have been an island that was part of a now submerged landmass, an ancient continent or chain of islands that was gradually submerged beneath rising seas. Over the millennia, it is possible that natural forces such as shifting tectonic plates, rising water levels, or volcanic activity could have eradicated the island, leaving no trace behind. This theory is supported by the fact that many ancient coastal civilizations, particularly in the Mediterranean and the Arabian Gulf, made references to lands or islands that are no longer visible today. Could Iabadiu have been one such island? Perhaps it was a victim of time, its lush landscape and thriving population eroded by the relentless forces of nature. But if this were the case, why did it disappear so suddenly, and why was it described in such specific terms in ancient texts? Others have suggested that Iabadiu might have been an early example of what we now call a phantom island, or fata morgana phenomenon, an illusion created by atmospheric conditions where distant land masses appear to hover on the horizon, distorted and sometimes seemingly within reach, only to vanish once the observer gets closer. Could the island have existed, but only as a mirage, a brief optical illusion that led travelers to believe it was a real place? And if so, what might have caused this illusion to appear with such consistency in ancient records? More fringe theories suggest that Iabadiu was never a natural island at all, but instead a creation of ancient cartographers, a place that was inserted into maps for symbolic or mystical reasons. Some theorists believe that the island may have been a part of a grand mythological or religious narrative, perhaps even a part of the same tradition that gave rise to stories of lost civilizations like Atlantis. Could the island be an allegory for something else, a metaphor for paradise, or a place where the boundaries between the known and unknown blurred? The question of what happened to Iabadiu remains unresolved. Some believe that the island may have been real but lost to the forces of nature, while others are convinced it was never more than a mirage, a fleeting illusion in the minds of those who sought it. Yet, as with so many mysteries of the ancient world, the lines between fact, fiction, and mythology remain blurred. As we ponder the fate of Iabadiu, we are reminded of the countless other stories of places and civilizations lost to time. What else might be hidden beneath the waves, waiting to be rediscovered? Could there be other phantom islands waiting in the depths, their stories still untold, their existence still debated? As we shift our focus once again to the ancient world, we find ourselves drawn to one of the most enigmatic disappearances along the famed Eastern Silk Route, a trade route that connected the rich civilizations of China to the bustling markets of the West. Somewhere along this vast stretch of desert and mountain landscapes lies the story of the lost caravan of the Eastern Silk Route, a mystery that has intrigued historians and adventurers for centuries. It was in the scorching expanse of the Taklamakan Desert, a place where the wind moves like a whisper and the sun bakes the earth with unrelenting intensity, that the caravan disappeared. This desert, one of the largest and most treacherous on Earth, is a land of extremes, where temperatures can reach 120 degrees Fahrenheit by day, and freezing cold sweeps over the dunes at night. It is a place where time seems to stand still, and yet, over 2,000 years ago, it was anything but empty. The desert was once alive with the movement of merchants, soldiers, and travelers, all following the great trade route that connected east to west. The caravan in question was part of a larger, established trade network that carried valuable goods, silk, spices, precious stones, and more, between the great empires of China, Persia, and even the Roman Empire. It was a vibrant exchange, but also one fraught with danger. The caravan in question, traveling sometime around the 2nd century BC, was making its way across a particularly hazardous stretch of the Silk Route when it simply vanished. No survivors, no tracks, no sign of its passage. One moment it was there, The next, it was gone. At the time, caravans were often led by seasoned traders who knew the land well, and this group was no different. Their route was mapped, their supplies prepared, and their journey was part of the regular flow of commerce. Yet, as the story goes, this particular caravan simply ceased to exist in the vast, unyielding desert. Was it a natural disaster that wiped them out? A sandstorm so ferocious that it buried them in a single moment? Or was it something more deliberate? A hidden attack by bandits or an unknown enemy, unseen and elusive? Some reports, written centuries later by travelers and historians who passed through the region, suggest that the caravan was carrying an extraordinary load of treasures, perhaps more than usual for such a journey. The goods were described as being of immense value, possibly even priceless items from distant lands. Could this have been the reason for the caravan's disappearance? Was it the target of thieves so cunning that even the desert could not give up their trail? But what is most curious is the eerie silence that followed the caravan's disappearance. In the years that followed, explorers, traders, and even local nomads scoured the region, hoping to find some trace of what had happened. Yet, despite their efforts, no evidence of the caravan was ever found. There were no skeletal remains, no remnants of goods, not even a footprint in the shifting sands that could indicate the caravan's fate. Some have suggested that the desert, with its ability to swallow even the most determined of adventurers, might have erased any trace of the caravan entirely. Yet, the question remains, how could such a disappearance occur in a land that had been mapped and traversed for centuries? One theory, widely discussed but never confirmed, is that the caravan may have fallen victim to a natural phenomenon, such as an unexpected sandstorm or a sudden quake that swallowed both the travelers and their precious cargo. The Taklamakan Desert is known for its intense and sudden shifts in weather, and the idea of a massive storm engulfing the caravan has some plausibility. However, this explanation still fails to account for the complete absence of any evidence, which leaves us to wonder, could there have been something even more mysterious at play? Some fringe theories suggest that the caravan's disappearance was not purely a natural event, but rather the result of an unknown force, perhaps a religious or spiritual significance attached to the goods they were carrying. Was there something in the caravan's cargo that marked it for destruction? Something that brought about the wrath of forces beyond human comprehension? Was the caravan's route cursed, or had they unwittingly crossed into a forbidden zone? Over time, the tale of the lost caravan has been passed down as part of the broader mystique surrounding the Silk Road, a route known as much for its trade and cultural exchange as for the mysteries and dangers that lay hidden in its vast stretches. Was the disappearance simply the result of human error, the natural dangers of the desert, or was there something more inexplicable at work? The story of the lost caravan remains unresolved, a haunting enigma in the history of the Silk Route. What really happened to those travelers, and why has the desert kept its secrets for so long? What truths are buried beneath the shifting dunes of the Taklamakan, waiting to be uncovered? For now, we are left with only questions, and perhaps a lingering sense that the answers still lie hidden in the vast emptiness of the desert. As we continue our journey through history's strangest and most perplexing mysteries, we come to a curious phenomenon noted by Roman engineers, one that has baffled modern minds and left us wondering about the true nature of the forces at play. This is the story of a strange magnetic hill, an area where the laws of physics seem to bend, where objects appear to defy gravity and move uphill, seemingly against the natural pull of the Earth. The magnetic hill in question, often referred to by historians as the Via Claudia Augusta anomaly, was first observed by Roman engineers in the 1st century BC during the expansion of the empire into new territories. The road in question ran through a region known for its peculiar topography, near the foothills of the Alps, where the land was rocky and uneven. As engineers and soldiers traversed the area, they noted something unusual. When certain vehicles, carts, or even small groups of soldiers stopped on the road, they seemed to roll uphill, slowly, almost imperceptibly, as if some invisible force were pushing them against the natural slope. To the engineers of the time, accustomed to the study of geometry and land surveying, this was not an easy mystery to explain. They had mapped and engineered roads across much of the known world, using sophisticated techniques of leveling and measurement. Yet, this strange phenomenon on the Via Claudia Augusta was not something that could be explained by any known principle of Roman engineering. How could this happen? Was it a trick of perception, a mirage of the mind, or was there some physical anomaly beneath the earth that caused objects to appear as though they were moving against the force of gravity? At first, some speculated that it was merely a trick of the landscape. The Via Claudia Augusta was built through a winding, hilly terrain, and it's possible that the gentle slopes of the road gave the illusion of objects moving uphill when, in fact, they were moving down a subtle incline. Could the engineers have simply misjudged the slope, creating an optical illusion? It's a plausible explanation, but the phenomenon continued to perplex them. The cartwheels, for example, would often make creaking sounds as they slowly moved, as if a force was gently nudging them forward. The soldiers who experienced it felt a strange, unnerving pull, as though the earth itself were subtly shifting beneath them. Over the centuries, this strange magnetic hill became a subject of fascination for explorers and historians alike. Some early scholars believed that the land harbored a hidden source of magnetism, an invisible force embedded in the Earth's crust, capable of influencing the movement of metal objects or even bending the natural laws of physics. Could there be some undiscovered magnetic field that caused the strange behavior of objects? The Romans, after all, were known for their keen interest in the natural world, and they were no strangers to experimentation with magnets and lodestones. The concept of a magnetic force was well within their understanding, though they never fully connected it to the strange events happening on the Via Claudia Augusta. In more recent times, modern scientists have looked to explain the phenomenon using the principles of geomagnetism. Could the region possess unusual magnetic properties that influence the movement of objects? While magnetic fields certainly exist within the Earth, scientists have yet to find any conclusive evidence that explains the effects observed on the hill. The area, with its unique geological features and magnetic anomalies, could, in theory, cause variations in gravitational pull, but these explanations remain largely speculative. Other theories delve into the more esoteric. Could the magnetic hill be linked to ancient engineering techniques that involved hidden, forgotten forces of nature? Some have proposed that the Romans may have encountered a rare, naturally occurring magnetic field in the area, one that even their advanced knowledge of engineering could not fully understand or control. It's a thought-provoking idea that the ancients may have stumbled upon a natural phenomenon that we are only now beginning to consider. As we reflect on the mystery of the magnetic hill noted by the Roman engineers, we are left with a lingering question. What exactly is happening in that remote stretch of land? Could it be the result of a hidden geological feature? Or is there a deeper, perhaps even unexplained force at work? Something the Romans sensed but could not explain fully. The enigma of the magnetic hill stands as one of those rare and thought-provoking mysteries where the line between natural phenomena and the unknown remains blurred. What might still be hidden beneath the Earth's surface, waiting for us to uncover? Is it simply a quirk of the land, or could it be a sign of something far stranger, something the Romans were only beginning to understand? As we continue our journey into history's most perplexing mysteries, we now find ourselves in the arid landscapes of northern Peru, at the foot of the Andes Mountains, where one of the ancient world's greatest enigmas still looms, Huaca del Sol. This vast, imposing structure, whose name means Temple of the Sun, was once part of a monumental complex built by the Moche civilization, a powerful culture that flourished from around 100 AD to 800 AD. Today, all that remains is a massive, crumbling pyramid, an ancient monument to something long lost to time, yet shrouded in mystery. At first glance, Huaca del Sol is both awe-inspiring and intimidating. Standing at over 40 meters tall, the pyramid was once made of millions of adobe bricks, painstakingly assembled by hand. Each brick, sun-baked and rough-hewn, was crafted to form vast terraces that soared high above the surrounding desert. In its prime, Huaca del Sol would have dominated the landscape, visible for miles in every direction. Even now, the structure holds a quiet power, its shattered remains whispering secrets of a civilization that, while sophisticated, has left us with few answers. The Moche people, whose culture is renowned for its intricate art, advanced irrigation systems, and complex social hierarchy, constructed Huaca del Sol as a center of ritual and power. The temple was not just a place of worship. It was also a political and economic hub, where the ruling elite gathered and displayed their authority. The Moche were skilled in metallurgy, ceramics, and engineering, yet their greatest achievement, Huaca del Sol, remains enigmatic. What exactly was the purpose of such a grand structure, and why was it so deliberately built in this remote and harsh landscape? One of the most puzzling aspects of Huaca del Sol is the fact that it seems to have served no clear religious purpose, at least not in the way that many other ancient temples do. Unlike other monumental structures, which often had clear associations with deities or rituals, Huaca del Sol has not revealed any definitive inscriptions, carvings, or other records that explain its religious significance. Archaeologists have found numerous ceramic vessels and offerings around the site, but nothing that directly connects the pyramid to a specific deity or cult. Was it simply a ceremonial space, or was there a deeper, hidden purpose to its construction? The absence of written records leaves us to wonder, what beliefs motivated the creation of such an imposing edifice, and why does the symbolism remain so elusive? Further complicating the mystery is the strange way in which Huaca del Sol was constructed. The adobe bricks that once made up the pyramid were not simply stacked in a uniform pattern. Instead, they were placed in a distinctive, layered fashion, with large blocks alternating with smaller ones. Some have speculated that this was done to reinforce the structure against the intense heat of the desert sun, which could cause the adobe to crack and erode. But why such an intricate design, one that would require such meticulous planning and labor? Was it a practical decision, or was there some deeper, symbolic meaning behind the choice? Another unsettling aspect of Huaca del Sol is its destruction. Despite its monumental size and importance, the pyramid was left largely in ruins by the time Spanish conquistadors arrived in the 16th century. It is believed that the structure was largely abandoned or partially destroyed during the early stages of the Moche civilization's decline. Some scholars believe that the pyramid's downfall was caused by shifting political and religious power, while others suggest that the Moche's decline was linked to environmental changes, droughts and flooding that may have disrupted the delicate balance between human civilization and the land. However, this is where the true mystery deepens. The Moche's mysterious collapse, followed by the abandonment of Huaca del Sol, has led to many speculative theories. Some believe that the pyramid's destruction was the result of a ritualistic sacrifice or the intervention of rival groups who may have sought to usurp the power of the elite. Others have pointed to signs of violent activity at the site, evidence of a possible overthrow where the temple's significance may have been obliterated by the very people it was built to control. Even today, Huaca del Sol stands as a monument to lost knowledge and forgotten power. The sheer scale of the pyramid suggests that it played a significant role in the Moche culture, yet we are left with few clues as to what that role was. Was Huaca del Sol merely a grand burial site, an astronomical observatory, or something altogether different? What was it that the Moche sought to commemorate with such a vast and labor-intensive structure? And what caused its eventual ruin, so abrupt and complete that even its builders left no lasting record to explain it? As the wind blows across the desert, carrying with it the whispers of ancient history, the story of Huaca del Sol remains shrouded in mystery. The answers are buried beneath the layers of sand and time, leaving us to wonder, what truth lies hidden in the ruins of this lost civilization? What secrets, if any, are still waiting to be uncovered? As we move deeper into the heart of history's unsolved mysteries, we find ourselves in the vast and desolate Nabataean desert, a place where ancient outposts once stood silent and proud, yet now lie abandoned, their secrets buried beneath the unforgiving sands. The Nabataean kingdom, which flourished from the 4th century BC to the 2nd century AD, was renowned for its intricate network of trade routes, its skill in water management, and its stunning capital of Petra, a city carved from rose-colored rock. But beyond this famous site, across the arid expanses of the desert, lie a series of outposts that once served as hubs of commerce, culture, and communication. Today, these locations remain eerily silent, their sudden abandonment leaving historians and archaeologists to question what happened to the Nabataeans, and why did their once thriving desert outposts fall into desolation? The desert outposts of the Nabataeans were strategically positioned along key trade routes, which connected the Arabian Peninsula with the Mediterranean world. These settlements were marvels of engineering, designed to withstand the harshest conditions the desert could offer. With ingenious systems of water storage, complex road networks, and carefully placed watchtowers, they were vital to the maintenance of trade and diplomacy. Some were bustling trading hubs, while others functioned as military fortresses, keeping watch over the volatile frontier between the desert and the empires of the ancient world. Yet, at some point in time, almost abruptly, these outposts fell silent. There are no clear records explaining why or when they were abandoned. The once bustling trade routes, so integral to the Nabataean way of life, simply grew quiet, leaving behind only the remnants of their existence. What caused this sudden shift? Why did a kingdom so adept at survival in such an unforgiving environment vanish so quickly from history? One plausible theory points to the changing tides of regional power. As the Roman Empire expanded into Nabataean territory in the 2nd century AD, the Nabataeans were gradually absorbed into the imperial system. The Romans took control of the region, and it's likely that some of the outposts were repurposed for Roman military and administrative use. However, this theory does little to explain why entire outposts, especially those located in remote areas far from Roman influence, seem to have been abandoned without a trace. Another possible explanation lies in the shifting environmental conditions of the region. The desert itself can be an unpredictable force. Archaeological evidence suggests that climate change may have played a role in the collapse of the Nabataean desert outposts. There is evidence to suggest that the region underwent significant changes in climate during the period of their decline. Droughts and increasingly difficult living conditions could have prompted the inhabitants to abandon these outposts in search of more fertile lands. But even this explanation leaves us with unanswered questions. If environmental change was a factor, why did some settlements persist, while others fell into total abandonment? There is also the more mysterious theory that the Nabataeans may have been involved in something far more elusive, something linked to their deep knowledge of water systems and desert survival. Some have speculated that the Nabataeans possessed advanced knowledge of astronomical or even mystical practices, which might have influenced their decisions to suddenly leave certain locations. Could they have left these outposts for reasons unknown to us? Perhaps a shift in their spiritual beliefs, or a deeper understanding of the desert's forces that we have yet to grasp? It's not a widely accepted theory, but it remains an intriguing possibility. Could the sudden silence of the Nabataean desert outposts be tied to something otherworldly? The mystery grows even more profound when we consider that some of these outposts were abandoned seemingly overnight. Archaeologists have found no evidence of destruction, no signs of battles, no evidence of forced evacuation, no sudden catastrophes. It's as if the inhabitants simply chose to leave, leaving behind everything they had worked so hard to build. Was it a cultural collapse? A sudden shift in trade routes? Or was there something more ominous at play? A hidden force that led the Nabataeans to retreat from the desert? Perhaps the answer lies in the sands themselves, waiting to be uncovered. With the passage of time, nature has claimed much of the region. The wind, carrying its age-old whispers, erases all traces of the past. But even in this silence, there are clues still to be found. Perhaps beneath the layers of dust and ruin, the truth of the Nabataean desert outposts is waiting to emerge, an answer lost in time, but never fully forgotten. As we stand in the shadow of these forgotten ruins, we are left to wonder, why did the Nabataeans abandon their desert stronghold so suddenly? Was it the march of empire, the unforgiving desert, or something more inscrutable that prompted their withdrawal? And, perhaps most hauntingly, are there still mysteries hidden in these ancient outposts, waiting for someone to uncover the truth? We now turn to a mystery that lies deep in the sands of time, far from the bustling metropolises of ancient civilizations. It is the enigma of the Nemi tablets, a collection of stone tablets unearthed in the Jordanian desert, near the ancient site of Nemi, which has long intrigued scholars, linguists, and historians alike. These tablets, weathered by the passage of centuries, carry a message inscribed in a language no one can identify. Despite the exhaustive efforts of modern scholars and experts in ancient languages, the writing remains unreadable, its origins unknown. The tablets themselves are an awe-inspiring discovery, each one carved with a series of intricate symbols, so precise and deliberate that they suggest a culture with a deep understanding of writing systems. The Nemi site, which once flourished in the heart of the ancient Nabataean world, appears to have been a ceremonial or religious center. Its strategic location, nestled between trade routes, suggests that it was once a hub for communication and commerce. But what secrets do these stones hold? And why do their messages remain locked in a language that has defied all attempts at translation? The Nemi tablets were first discovered in the early 20th century, and they quickly became the subject of intense study. Scholars noted that while the script resembled known Semitic languages, such as Aramaic or Phoenician, it contained distinct features that set it apart. The symbols were neither fully recognizable nor decipherable. Each tablet contained hundreds of characters, many of which seemed to follow a consistent structure, suggesting that they were part of a coherent linguistic system. Yet, despite their complexity, the language did not match any known ancient script, and attempts to link it to any established language group have yielded no conclusive results. What makes the Nemi tablets so particularly compelling is the sheer number of them. Dozens of tablets were discovered at the site, and while some were partially damaged, many are relatively well preserved. This abundance of material has allowed linguists to closely compare the symbols, searching for patterns that might lead to a breakthrough in understanding the language. And yet, the mystery persists. Even after decades of research, no one has been able to translate the symbols with any degree of certainty. Some researchers speculate that the script may represent a language that was either isolated or has been lost to time entirely, an ancient dialect that never found its way into the broader historical record. Among the theories surrounding the Nemi tablets is the idea that they could be evidence of a forgotten civilization, one that existed on the periphery of more widely known cultures. Could the people who created the tablets have been part of an ancient group that was never fully incorporated into the larger cultural landscape of the Near East? Some scholars suggest that the Nemi tablets may belong to a completely unknown language family, one that was used by a group of people who left few other traces of their existence. If this theory is correct, the tablets might represent the last remnants of an obscure, isolated culture whose legacy was erased from history. Other more speculative theories propose that the tablets may not belong to any known human civilization at all. Could they have been created by an entirely different kind of society, perhaps an alien or supernatural one? While such ideas remain firmly in the realm of fringe theory, the fact that the script is so unlike any other discovered language gives pause. What if these strange symbols were intended to communicate something far beyond the human experience? This theory, though highly speculative, speaks to the allure of the Nemi tablets, the possibility that they are not merely relics of the past, but pieces of a larger puzzle that humanity has yet to fully understand. Still, more grounded theories suggest that the tablets could have been created by a religious or political elite, attempting to preserve their sacred or governmental knowledge in a language that would not easily be understood by outsiders. If the tablets were used for ceremonial or mystical purposes, it is possible that the language was deliberately constructed to remain obscure, its meaning understood only by a select few. But if this is the case, why was it lost to time, and why was it never revived by later civilizations that might have inherited it? Even with the advances of modern technology, such as high-resolution imaging, computational analysis, and AI-based language decoding, the Nemi tablets remain locked in silence. Their symbols persist as a tantalizing enigma, one that continues to defy all attempts at unraveling. As we stand before these ancient stones, worn by centuries of desert winds, we are left with the haunting question: what did the creators of the Nemi tablets wish to communicate, and why has their language remained so impenetrable? Was this a forgotten culture, a lost dialect, or something altogether more mysterious? As time marches on, the tablets still offer no answers, only the faint echoes of a forgotten past, waiting for someone to decipher their meaning. What might still be hidden in the depths of the Nemi ruins, buried beneath the shifting sands, waiting for us to understand? As we continue our exploration of history's most perplexing mysteries, we now turn our attention to an oasis settlement in North Africa, a place that, once thriving, is now a ghostly reminder of a civilization lost to time. Nestled in the harsh, unforgiving landscape of the Saharan desert, this oasis was a bustling community, sustained by a rich ecosystem and vital trade routes that connected the far reaches of Africa with the Mediterranean world. Yet, despite its promising location and apparent prosperity, the settlement met a sudden and unexplained collapse, one that left behind no clear answers as to why it fell into ruin. The settlement in question, thought to be located near what is now Libya, thrived from at least the 3rd century BC. Archaeological evidence suggests that the oasis was home to a complex society with well-built structures, thriving agriculture, and a network of trade routes that brought in goods from distant lands. Water was abundant, sourced from natural springs that fed into fertile lands, supporting not just crops, but a thriving population of traders, artisans, and laborers. The region's proximity to the crossroads of ancient empires, including the Ptolemaic Egypt to the east and the Carthaginian territories to the west, would have ensured that this oasis settlement was a key player in the region's economic and cultural exchanges. However, the once thriving community vanished with surprising suddenness. The collapse of the settlement was complete, and there is no evidence to suggest a gradual decline or even a catastrophe that might explain the abandonment. Archaeologists have found no signs of warfare, invasion, or natural disaster such as the type of catastrophic droughts or floods that might typically explain the fall of an oasis-based society. No signs of battle or destruction mar the walls of its buildings, and there are no mass graves or burned structures that could suggest a violent end. Even more perplexing, there is no indication of a prolonged environmental collapse, such as a drought that might have caused the oasis to dry up. In fact, the water sources around the site remained viable for centuries after the settlement's disappearance. This absence of evidence has led historians to puzzle over what, exactly, caused the community to vanish so suddenly. One possible explanation is that the collapse was due to internal factors: political upheaval, economic breakdown, or social unrest. Perhaps the ruling elite overextended their control, or infighting among local leaders undermined the stability of the settlement. The fact that the settlement was strategically positioned at the crossroads of trade routes would have made it vulnerable to shifting political tides, and it is possible that a series of bad decisions or infighting between factions led to its rapid abandonment. If there was an internal collapse, it could explain the lack of physical evidence, as a collapse of this nature would not necessarily leave the kinds of visible scars one might expect from an external enemy. Yet this theory still leaves much unanswered. Why did an entire settlement vanish without any sign of a prolonged struggle or gradual decline? The lack of evidence for social unrest or political strife makes this explanation seem incomplete. Moreover, such an abrupt fall would seem unlikely for a community that had long been integrated into the region's established trade systems. If internal strife was indeed to blame, why were there no records, no ruins of battle, no clear signs of conflict left behind? An alternative theory focuses on environmental change, but one that is far subtler than the traditional explanations of drought. The Saharan desert is known for its shifting climate, and some researchers have suggested that the region experienced a slow yet significant change in its environmental conditions. While there is no direct evidence of drought, subtle shifts in weather patterns or changes in the availability of water sources could have affected the local agriculture. Perhaps the spring-fed oasis gradually became less reliable, or the surrounding land became more difficult to farm. The people of the oasis, however, might not have noticed this gradual decline until it was too late. The settlement could have struggled in silence for years, its inhabitants unaware of how precarious their situation was until the tipping point arrived. If this theory holds, it would explain the sudden collapse of the settlement. The gradual erosion of their agricultural base, paired with an inability to adapt quickly enough to the changing environment, could have triggered the exodus. But could there have been another, more mysterious explanation? Some have suggested that the settlement's disappearance could be linked to a broader cultural or spiritual shift, one that led the inhabitants to abandon their homes and their way of life without leaving any trace of their departure. In many ancient cultures, there are instances of entire communities leaving their settlements abruptly, often without any clear explanation. Some theorists suggest that these mass migrations or disappearances were the result of religious or cultural upheavals, where the people felt the need to retreat or abandon their material possessions in favor of a new beginning. Was the settlement abandoned not out of necessity, but out of a collective spiritual or philosophical choice? Even more speculative theories have proposed that the collapse could have been linked to some unknown external force, an invasion by a mysterious group, or perhaps an encounter with forces we can't even fully comprehend. Some have even suggested that the community might have had contact with extraterrestrial forces, or encountered unknown phenomena that led them to abandon their settlement. These theories, though far-fetched, speak to the ongoing fascination with the unknown and the mysteries that continue to defy all logical explanations. What we are left with is a tantalizing and unsolved mystery. Despite the best efforts of archaeologists, there is still no definitive explanation for why this North African oasis settlement collapsed so suddenly and completely. No records, no signs of war or conflict, no evidence of environmental disaster, and no trace of the people who once thrived in this place. As we stand before the empty ruins of this lost settlement, we are left to wonder, what truly caused its fall? Was it a slow environmental change, an internal societal collapse, or something more mysterious? Perhaps something we have yet to understand or uncover? The answers remain elusive, buried in the sands of the desert, leaving us to wonder what secrets still lie hidden beneath the surface. As we continue to delve into the strange and uncharted corners of history, we find ourselves in Hispania, a land rich with the remnants of ancient civilizations, where one of its most unusual mysteries still reverberates through time: the enigma of the Whispering Well. This well, located in the remote hills of Andalusia, Spain, is not just a source of water, it has become a site of legend. To this day, it is known for a peculiar and unsettling phenomenon. Those who stand near its edge claim to hear faint whispers coming from the depths. Some say the voices are ancient, others that they belong to spirits or forgotten souls, but all agree on one thing: the whispers are real. And for a time, they were so disturbing that local authorities sealed the well, preventing anyone from coming near it. The well itself is a simple, unassuming structure. Built centuries ago, its stones are weathered and cracked by time, its once gleaming surface now covered in layers of dirt and moss. Yet, as ordinary as it may appear, it holds a dark reputation among the people who live nearby. The surrounding landscape is rugged, marked by the wild hills and sparse vegetation of the Sierra Morena mountain range. There, the well lies, partially obscured by overgrowth and hidden from the casual observer. Local legends speak of it as a place of mystery, an ancient site that predates Roman or even earlier civilizations. The well, they say, was once a place of ritual, used for ceremonies or as a marker for an old pilgrimage route. But it was not until much later that the whispers, faint but undeniable, began to attract attention. In the early 20th century, a local historian and several curious travelers began to investigate the well, eager to learn more about its origins and its strange reputation. As they peered into the dark depths, they reported hearing soft voices, almost as if someone was whispering secrets from the farthest reaches of the earth. Others claimed to hear names being called, cryptic messages that could not be fully understood. The phenomenon was not consistent. Some people heard nothing, while others swore they could hear entire conversations echoing from below. For years, the whispers were a local mystery, and the well gained a reputation as a haunted, almost sacred place. Yet, it wasn't until the late 1930s that the authorities took action. Disturbing reports surfaced of people becoming entranced by the whispers, spending hours staring into the depths, unable to tear themselves away. Some claimed to have experienced altered states of consciousness, as if the voices were not merely sounds, but some form of psychological manipulation. Others spoke of vivid visions, of dreams and memories not their own, leading some to speculate that the well might hold some form of power or connection to forces beyond normal understanding. Faced with mounting concerns over the safety of the local population, as well as the growing notoriety of the site, the Spanish government intervened. In a rare move, local authorities sealed off the well. The entrance was blocked with heavy stones, and a fence was constructed around the site to keep people away. Officially, the closure was explained as a protective measure to prevent further danger. But behind closed doors, whispers circulated that the authorities knew more about the well's strange effects than they were willing to admit. The government, it seemed, feared that the well's influence might extend beyond simple superstition, and that something far more mysterious was at work. For decades, the well remained sealed, its eerie whispers silenced by stone and time. Yet, despite the official closure, the mystery surrounding the Whispering Well has not faded. If anything, it has only grown stronger. Those who have visited the site in recent years report that the location still holds an inexplicable pull. Some claim to feel a presence near the well, a strange sensation that something is watching them, while others say they can still hear faint whispers carried by the wind, as if the well itself refuses to be silenced. However, no one has dared to open the well again, and it remains a forbidden place. What then can explain this phenomenon? The most plausible explanation is that the sound of the whispers is a natural acoustic effect. The well, with its narrow, deep shaft, may amplify and distort surrounding sounds, creating a strange auditory illusion. Wind, passing through the narrow opening, could generate an eerie, whistling sound that might resemble voices. And yet, this explanation fails to account for the specific and often personal nature of the whispers. Some who have listened to the well's sounds claim that the voices speak directly to them, calling their names or recounting details of their lives that could not have been known by anyone else. Could this simply be the power of suggestion, people hearing what they want to hear, or interpreting ordinary sounds as something extraordinary? Or is there something more to the phenomenon, something beyond mere acoustics? There are, of course, more speculative theories. Some believe the well may have been built atop an ancient burial site, its whispering voices the lingering echoes of spirits who have not found peace. Others suggest that the well is tied to ancient rituals or esoteric knowledge, and that the whispers are some form of communication from a long-forgotten culture. In this theory, the well acts as a conduit to a distant past, a time when the area was a sacred site for mystical practices, and the voices are remnants of an ancient language or forgotten teachings. Another theory posits that the whispers are the result of a more psychological phenomenon, something akin to group hypnosis or mass suggestion. The mind, in such a location, an eerie, isolated place, might begin to play tricks, causing individuals to hear what they believe they should hear. Could the power of belief, passed down through generations of folklore, have shaped the way people experience the site? And what of the authorities' decision to seal the well? Could it be that they were simply trying to suppress a growing legend, or did they have other, more compelling reasons for closing it off? As with many mysteries of the past, we are left with more questions than answers. The Whispering Well of Hispania, sealed by authorities and abandoned to history, remains one of the most curious enigmas in the region. What is the source of the voices that have echoed through the centuries? Is it simply an acoustic illusion, or is there something more to the whispers? Something that remains hidden, buried deep within the earth? The well's silence today only deepens the mystery, leaving us to wonder, what might still be concealed in its depths? As we move further into the shadowy corners of history, we encounter a peculiar and unsettling phenomenon reported by the Roman soldiers themselves, one that transcended the ordinary concerns of battle and strategy. The ancient Roman military, known for its discipline and rigorous structure, was not immune to the strange and unexplained occurrences that can accompany war. One such occurrence, documented in several Roman reports, speaks of mysterious and unsettling headless shadows that appeared on the eve of battles. These eerie figures, seen by soldiers and generals alike, seemed to presage something dire. The Romans, who were no strangers to omens and signs, recorded these apparitions in their annals, but no one has ever fully explained their meaning or origin. The reports speak of these shadows appearing in the midst of military camps, often on the edge of the campfire's glow, where they would move, often in the darkness, with the eerie semblance of human figures but lacking any discernible head. They would glide silently between the tents, or in some cases, appear in the midst of Roman soldiers just before dawn. The soldiers would watch, transfixed by these figures, sometimes feeling a chill run down their spines, other times experiencing a strange sense of foreboding. On a few occasions, these shadows would seem to be joined by other apparitions, animals, particularly birds or horses, suggesting some connection between the headless figures and other symbols of death or doom. For the Romans, the supernatural and the omens were a deeply integrated part of their daily life. Priests and soothsayers, known as augurs, would interpret the behavior of birds and other signs as messages from the gods, guiding military strategies or even signaling the outcome of battles. So, the appearance of these headless shadows was no small matter. Roman commanders, particularly those with a keen sense of their military prowess, would take these omens seriously, sometimes delaying actions, rethinking strategies, or offering sacrifices to appease whatever unseen force had sent them. The shadows were often seen just before pivotal battles, moments when the fate of legions hung in the balance. In one notable instance, recorded by the historian Pliny the Elder during the Battle of the Teutoburg Forest in 9 AD, one of Rome's most catastrophic defeats, a shadowy figure was reported to have appeared just before the final attack. The figure was described as a soldier, cloaked in shadow, with no head, moving silently across the battlefield, as if leading the way for the ambush that would destroy 3 Roman legions. Although the headless shadow was not fully understood at the time, many historians now believe that the appearance of this figure signified the end of Roman dominance in the region. It was an omen, not only of the loss, but of the darkness that would envelop Rome in the aftermath of such a significant military failure. Other reports, while less dramatic, still carry an air of mystery. In another, less famous account, the shadow was seen at a Roman camp just before the Battle of Cannae in 216 BC, one of the most infamous losses in Roman history. Here, the headless figure was described as moving in and out of the command tent, as if observing the commanders and their final preparations for the impending confrontation with Hannibal's forces. This figure's appearance did little to inspire hope among the soldiers, and many, upon witnessing it, believed that it foretold the terrible loss of life that would follow. In both cases, the shadows were seen as a sign of the inevitable, a warning that could not be ignored. But what exactly were these headless shadows? Were they manifestations of the collective anxiety and fear that swept through the Roman legions, particularly as they faced difficult or near impossible battles? Some historians and psychologists suggest that the sightings could be explained as shared hallucinations or psychological projections, a sort of mass hysteria brought on by the tension of war. The stress of being on the brink of battle, the fear of impending doom, could have been enough to cause soldiers to believe they were seeing things, ghostly shapes or figures moving in the shadows. In this theory, the headless aspect of the figures might reflect the soldiers' sense of losing their identity, their individuality, as they prepared to sacrifice themselves for the empire. Another explanation might be rooted in the Roman military's deeply entrenched belief in omens and prophecies. In the Roman worldview, everything had meaning, and every event, even the smallest, could be interpreted as a message from the gods. The headless shadow, then, could have been a symbol of death itself, an ancient figure that appeared to signal that something momentous was about to happen, something that could not be avoided. The figure's lack of a head could symbolize the inevitability of death and the loss of control, both of which would resonate with soldiers who lived in constant fear of the violence that would come with the next battle. If the Romans believed that the gods were sending them a warning, it would make sense that the appearance of such an apparition would be seen as a portent of a coming disaster. For some, the headless shadows could represent the Roman genius, a form of protective spirit or guiding force that was said to be present in every Roman soldier and in the legions themselves. Could these shadows have been the genius of the soldiers themselves, manifesting in some supernatural way to show them the darkness ahead? Could these figures have represented something more profound, an acknowledgement that no matter how mighty or well-prepared the Roman army was, death and defeat were always lurking just beyond the horizon? There are, of course, more speculative theories that propose these headless shadows as something far more mysterious, perhaps even extraterrestrial in origin. Some fringe theorists suggest that these shadows were not the product of human fear or superstition, but were rather the result of alien presence or some form of interdimensional contact. Could these apparitions be the result of some unknown force, possibly related to the advanced technology or knowledge of beings from another world? After all, in the Roman Empire, where culture, science, and belief systems often blended together, the strange and unexplained were frequently attributed to the gods, and perhaps some Roman commanders saw these shadowy figures as divine messengers, or even as alien visitors preparing them for the inevitable. Despite the many theories, both rational and far-fetched, what remains most fascinating about the Roman reports of headless shadows is the deep sense of foreboding they convey. Whether born from the anxieties of war, the religious fervor of a civilization that saw the hand of the gods in every aspect of life, or something more inexplicable, these figures left an indelible mark on the minds of the soldiers who saw them. The headless shadows might have faded into history, but they still provoke deep questions about fate, death, and the unseen forces that govern human lives. What were these figures trying to communicate to the Romans, and what, if anything, do they still have to tell us today? Is there still some unknown factor at play, hidden from view, waiting to be uncovered? The shadows continue to whisper from the past, and we are left to wonder what still remains concealed in their silent depths. As we journey deeper into the world of ancient trade routes, we come across an anomaly buried in the shifting sands of history, an enigma known only to those who walk the forgotten paths of the desert. Along the ancient trade routes that stretched from the Nile in the south to the heart of Mesopotamia and beyond, archaeologists have uncovered strange objects, glimmering, translucent remnants of a bygone era. These objects, pieces of desert glass, can be found scattered across the scorching sands of the Sahara and in remote corners of the Arabian Peninsula. They are not just fragments. They are meticulously shaped objects, some appearing to be tools, others strangely crafted ornaments. But what makes them truly mysterious is not their shape or form, but their very existence in the context of these ancient trade paths. Where did they come from? How did they end up in the middle of such arid, inhospitable terrain? And why were they so highly valued? The most well-known of these desert glass objects are the remnants of Libyan desert glass, a rare, naturally occurring form of glass found in the Sahara Desert. It's thought to have been created by an extraordinary event roughly 29 million years ago, when a meteorite or comet exploded in the atmosphere, releasing a burst of energy so intense it caused the silica-rich sands of the desert to melt into glass. This natural glass formed in the shape of large, translucent chunks, sometimes as big as a human head, shimmering gold and green in the desert sun. The fact that these glass objects exist at all seems almost too fantastical. An extraordinary event frozen in time, a relic of a cataclysmic impact. But while the creation of Libyan desert glass itself is well understood by modern science, the objects we now find scattered along ancient trade routes offer a deeper mystery. For one thing, these glass fragments were highly prized in antiquity. They were not merely swept up and discarded. They were carefully shaped, polished, and turned into tools and jewelry. The ancient Egyptians, for example, used desert glass to craft amulets and ceremonial objects. In the tomb of Tutankhamun, a famous golden scarab contains a core made of this unique glass, suggesting that it was regarded as a material of great importance, perhaps even as a conduit to the divine. What is most intriguing, however, is the sheer quantity of these objects found along the ancient trade paths. In regions where the natural desert glass should be scarce, archaeologists have found clusters of glass artifacts, often near ancient settlements or way stations where merchants would have passed through. These trade routes, stretching from Egypt across the Arabian Peninsula and into Mesopotamia, were the lifelines of ancient commerce. The glass objects, many of which are too refined to be considered simple tools, suggest that desert glass had a significance beyond utility. It had value, symbolic power, perhaps even a sacred meaning to those who carried it. But how did these glass objects end up on these distant routes in the first place? The trade networks of the ancient world were vast and interconnected, and the desert glass was certainly not produced by the people living along these paths. The materials needed to craft such delicate objects, the skills and the knowledge to work glass, were not widespread in the desert. So, what brought these precious items to these distant places? Theories abound, and yet none offer a fully satisfying explanation. One prevailing theory is that desert glass was highly sought after for its mystical properties. In ancient Egypt, it was believed that such rare objects held spiritual significance. The glass was thought to have been created by the gods themselves, a gift from the heavens, and it was often associated with the power of the sun, which was an omnipotent force in Egyptian religion. The glass could have been seen as a tangible connection to the divine, perhaps even a material embodiment of the sunlight that nurtured all life. Given the religious importance of such items, it is not hard to imagine that they would have been traded across vast distances, passed along from merchant to merchant, from one civilization to the next. Another, more speculative theory suggests that these desert glass objects may have been used in early forms of alchemy or ritual practices. In the ancient world, the boundaries between science, magic, and religion were not so clearly drawn as they are today. Could these fragments of glass have been used in secretive ceremonies, rituals intended to harness cosmic or celestial power? Were the glass objects seen as sacred relics imbued with the power of the stars, used by ancient healers, shamans, or spiritual leaders to channel forces beyond human understanding? This idea is further supported by the fact that desert glass is known for its unique ability to reflect light in unusual ways, creating an almost otherworldly glow when exposed to the sun. For ancient peoples living in the harsh, unforgiving desert, such a phenomenon may have seemed like a sign from the gods themselves. There are also those who speculate that the glass objects were part of an early form of trade currency, used as a medium of exchange long before the advent of coins or more familiar forms of money. In this theory, desert glass would have been valued not just for its rarity and beauty, but for its universal appeal, its shimmering, translucent quality, making it desirable to cultures far beyond the deserts where it was created. The glass might have been traded like precious metals, moved along the trade routes in quantities large enough to suggest it was used as a form of barter or exchange. But there is yet another, darker possibility, one that remains largely unspoken but cannot be entirely ruled out. Some historians and archaeologists suggest that the desert glass objects, particularly those found in larger concentrations, may be connected to the catastrophic events that shaped the early history of the region. Could these objects be remnants of ancient, lost civilizations, whose rise and fall are not documented in the history books? The idea that a once thriving culture, perhaps destroyed by a natural disaster or conflict, could have left behind these precious items as relics of a lost world is compelling. This would align with the scattered nature of the glass artifacts, sudden, mysterious, and inexplicable. As the trade routes evolved, the importance of these glass objects seemed to wane, and eventually they were forgotten by most. The mysteries surrounding them were buried in the sand, waiting to be rediscovered. Yet, the question remains, what was the true significance of these strange, beautiful glass objects? Were they sacred tokens, passed along the trade routes as spiritual gifts? Or were they something more? Physical manifestations of an unknown past, a lost civilization, or a forgotten knowledge? The mystery of the desert glass objects, with their strange beauty and unexplained origin, continues to haunt the fringes of history. We may never know for certain how these artifacts traveled across the deserts, what they meant to those who crafted them, or why they were so highly prized. But in the shimmering remnants of glass, we are left to wonder, what secrets do these pieces still hold, buried in the vast and ancient deserts? And how many other, even more mysterious relics remain hidden beneath the sands, waiting for the day when they too might be uncovered. As we continue our journey through the most peculiar and unexplained mysteries in history, we find ourselves drawn to a region where the tides of time seem to have swept away pieces of history without leaving a trace. Along the coast of what is now modern-day Ethiopia and Eritrea lies the heart of an ancient civilization that once flourished, the Axumite Empire. Known for its powerful trade routes, towering obelisks, and its pivotal role in early Christianity, the Axumites built their coastal settlements to rival those of the great maritime powers of antiquity. Yet, despite their prominence, some of these settlements have inexplicably vanished from history, leaving behind little more than fragmented ruins and unanswered questions. One of the most enduring and unsettling mysteries surrounding the Axumite civilization is the disappearance of its early coastal settlements. The Axumites, thriving between the 4th century BC and the 7th century AD, were a seafaring people with vast networks of trade stretching from the Arabian Peninsula across to India and Rome. They were masters of commerce, shipping ivory, gold, and frankincense to distant shores, and their cities along the coast were key hubs in this vast network. Yet, today, many of these once thriving coastal settlements are nothing more than ghostly remnants, with only fragments of their ancient structures scattered along the shore. The most notable of these lost settlements is the ancient city of Adulis, located near the modern-day port city of Massawa in Eritrea. Once a bustling port city and a major trade hub between the Mediterranean and the Indian Ocean, Adulis was referenced by many classical writers, including the Greek historian Pliny the Elder and the Roman merchant Cosmas Indicopleustes. They described a city alive with commerce, its harbors teeming with ships from lands as far as Rome and Arabia. But today, the site of Adulis lies in ruins, with only scattered foundations and broken pottery as evidence of its former grandeur. The rest of its history seems to have been swallowed by time and the relentless march of the desert. So, what happened to these coastal settlements, and why did they fade into obscurity? Was it a natural disaster that destroyed them, or was there something more mysterious at play? The most widely accepted explanation is that the decline of the Axumite coastal cities was tied to a combination of environmental factors. The shift in climate patterns, particularly a gradual reduction in rainfall over centuries, likely contributed to the eventual collapse of the once thriving maritime trade. As the coastal region became less hospitable, with diminishing agricultural productivity and increasingly erratic weather, it is possible that the inhabitants of Adulis and other coastal settlements were forced to abandon their cities and move inland, seeking more stable environments. However, while environmental decline may have played a significant role, it does not fully account for the abruptness of the disappearance. It is as if one day these cities were vibrant, and the next they were deserted, without even a clear record of the mass exodus or destruction. The second theory suggests that the rise of Islam in the 7th century might have been a contributing factor. As the Axumite Empire was located at the crossroads of the Christian and Islamic worlds, the spread of Islam in the region might have disrupted the delicate balance of trade that had supported these coastal cities. It's been speculated that as Islamic forces grew stronger, particularly with the expansion of the Arab caliphates, Axumite coastal settlements may have fallen under pressure. The Axumites, who had long maintained relationships with the Roman Empire and other Christian states, might have found it increasingly difficult to compete with the new Islamic powers in the region. The abandonment of the coastal cities could have been a response to this shift, as they moved to more secure locations further inland, away from the encroaching influence of Islamic empires. But while these theories offer plausible explanations, there remains an unsettling gap in the historical narrative. Why did the Axumite civilization not recover, as many other ancient cultures did, after such pressures? Why did they not rebuild their coastal settlements or establish new ones further south, as other civilizations had done in similar circumstances? The suddenness and completeness of their disappearance suggest that there might have been other factors at work, factors that we have yet to fully understand. There are, of course, more speculative theories that delve into the realm of the unknown. Some have suggested that the collapse of the Axumite coastal settlements might be tied to a larger, more cosmic event, something beyond human control. Could it have been a catastrophic natural disaster that wiped out the region? Earthquakes, tsunamis, or even a volcanic eruption could have struck without warning, sending the inhabitants fleeing in terror and leaving the settlements abandoned in the aftermath. Such events, although rare, are not entirely out of the question in a region that sits on the edges of tectonic plate boundaries, where seismic activity is not unknown. Others have turned to the supernatural for answers. In ancient cultures, the sudden collapse of a great city or empire was often interpreted as a divine punishment or a consequence of violating sacred codes. Could there have been a spiritual or religious reason for the disappearance of these settlements? In a civilization as deeply entrenched in religious beliefs as the Axumites, the wrath of the gods could have been seen as the cause of their downfall. Some even propose that these ancient coastal cities were not destroyed in battle or abandoned out of necessity, but were rather mysteriously sealed by some unseen force, their destruction hidden from history as if deliberately erased from time's record. As we attempt to piece together the fate of these coastal settlements, one cannot help but wonder if we are missing key pieces of the puzzle. Were the Axumite people simply victims of their environment and their changing geopolitical landscape? Or were there forces, human, natural, or otherwise, that played a role in the sudden disappearance of these cities, forces that remain hidden, buried beneath the shifting sands of time? The ruins of Adulis and other lost settlements stand as silent sentinels to an ancient past. Their very existence and their eventual loss raise questions that may never be fully answered. How much do we truly know about the early Axumites, their coastlines, their cities, and their eventual fate? The mystery of these lost settlements lingers in the air like the quiet whispers of a time long gone, waiting for someone to listen, to uncover what lies hidden beneath the sands, and perhaps to reveal the truth behind one of the most fascinating and enigmatic disappearances in history. As we move further back into the ancient past, we encounter a peculiar and somewhat perplexing gap in the historical record. An entire Egyptian Nome, a district within the vast tapestry of ancient Egypt, that seems to have disappeared from official accounts. For a civilization as meticulously organized and record-keeping as ancient Egypt, it is striking to find entire census records from a region completely absent. This anomaly is particularly unsettling when we consider the sheer importance of censuses to Egyptian society, which was built upon an intricate web of administration, taxation, and social organization. Imagine the Nile, flowing languidly through its banks, the surrounding fertile land dotted with fields and villages. The life of ancient Egypt, particularly during the Middle Kingdom, around 2055 to 1650 BC, thrived on a delicate balance of agricultural production, labor, and governance. The very backbone of this civilization lay in its ability to maintain detailed records. Tax assessments, population counts, agricultural yields, and military conscriptions were all systematically recorded. These censuses, collected by royal officials, were indispensable for the state to function effectively. They told pharaohs how many people were available to work, how much grain was produced, and which regions were prosperous and which were struggling. Yet, within the carefully catalogued landscape of Egypt's administrative records, there exists an enigma. One Nome, which once thrived along the banks of the Nile, has left behind no trace in the ancient census archives. This Nome, whose name has become synonymous with mystery, is known to historians by its geographic location, yet its people, their professions, their lives, and their relationship to the kingdom are absent from the official documentation. The mystery centers on the Nome of Thinis, a region of Upper Egypt that was once home to the earliest dynastic rulers. Thinis was the cradle of Egypt's first pharaohs, where the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt is said to have taken place. Yet, despite its historical significance, the census records that would have described the region's population, economy, and political structure are mysteriously missing, as if erased from the pages of time. It is not as though we lack evidence that Thinis existed. Archaeological excavations at Abydos, its ceremonial capital, have revealed monumental structures, royal tombs, and ancient temples. Artifacts of daily life, tools, pottery, and inscriptions have been unearthed, revealing a vibrant, well-developed society that predates the more famous and well-documented periods of the New Kingdom. Thinis was undoubtedly a powerful and influential area, deeply connected to the spiritual heart of Egypt, yet its absence from the record-keeping system is baffling. Historians have long debated the reasons for this curious omission. The most straightforward explanation suggests that the records were simply lost, perhaps through natural disasters, fires, or the ravages of time. Ancient papyrus scrolls, which were used to maintain these important documents, were highly susceptible to deterioration. Entire libraries of knowledge have been lost to history for similar reasons. Perhaps the censuses of Thinis were never preserved, or have since rotted away, leaving us with only partial traces of a once vibrant region. Yet the absence of the Thinis records doesn't seem to fit neatly within this explanation. Egypt's record-keeping was extensive, spanning many centuries and dynasties, and it would be highly unusual for an entire nome to disappear from official censuses without a trace. Furthermore, the Egyptian state was particularly diligent in ensuring that even remote regions were accounted for, given their reliance on taxes, agricultural production, and conscripted labor. Could it be possible that the omission was deliberate? Some scholars have proposed a more political theory, one that suggests the disappearance of the Thinis census records was not an oversight, but a conscious act of historical erasure. This theory is based on the idea that Thinis, once the powerful center of the First Dynasty, may have become politically undesirable or even a rival to later pharaohs. If this theory holds, we might be looking at an intentional attempt to obscure the importance of Thinis in Egypt's formative years, perhaps due to political shifts or internal power struggles. If Thinis's legacy threatened the legitimacy of a new ruling family, wiping out its records could have been an effective way to diminish its influence in the eyes of future generations. But what might have prompted such an erasure? Was there a reason that Thinis, a region with such historical significance, needed to be hidden from view? Could it have been a rivalry with later pharaohs, who were eager to distance themselves from their predecessors? Or was there something about the people of Thinis themselves, perhaps their religious practices or political alignments, that made their history inconvenient for later rulers? Some fringe theories offer even more speculative answers. Could the missing census records of Thinis be linked to something beyond human politics? Some have wondered if there was a more supernatural reason for their disappearance. Ancient Egypt, with its deep connections to the divine and the afterlife, often saw political events as being entwined with the will of the gods. Could the erasure of Thinis be the result of a divine intervention or punishment? Perhaps the people of Thinis, having enjoyed such power in Egypt's early days, had drawn the ire of the gods, and their legacy was deliberately obscured to prevent their continued influence on the kingdom. While this theory is speculative at best, it reflects the deep-rooted belief in ancient Egypt that divine forces were often at play in the fate of individuals and entire cities. More plausibly, the erasure could have been the result of a dynasty's effort to rewrite Egypt's history for their own benefit. Historical records were incredibly valuable in legitimizing the rule of pharaohs, and it's possible that some rulers sought to change the narrative of Egypt's founding, an act not uncommon in the ancient world. As we dig deeper into the enigma of the missing census records of Thinis, we are left with more questions than answers. Was the absence of these records the result of simple neglect? Or was there a purposeful attempt to obscure the truth of Thinis's importance in Egyptian history? If these records were deliberately erased, what was the motive behind it? And, most intriguingly, what might we learn if these lost documents were ever uncovered? For now, the mystery remains unsolved, and the shadow of Thinis continues to linger over the history of Egypt. Perhaps the sands of time have buried the answers we seek, or perhaps they are still waiting to be uncovered, hidden in a forgotten corner of the ancient world. Only time will tell. As we journey deeper into the rich and ancient world of Indian mythology and history, we come across a strange and perplexing creature, a being that seems to straddle the boundary between the human and the animal. The creature appears in ancient texts, particularly in the Mahabharata and the Vedas, and its descriptions have left scholars and historians alike scratching their heads for centuries. Known as the man-faced animal, this enigmatic entity presents a puzzle that has yet to be solved. Imagine yourself in the dense, verdant forests of ancient India. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth and the sound of distant rustling leaves. In the midst of this jungle, ancient sages, or rishis, sat in quiet contemplation, their minds attuned to the mysteries of the world. The stories they recorded, passed down for generations, are filled with creatures, gods, and beings that seem to defy the laws of nature. Among these stories is one of a being unlike any other, a creature with the body of an animal, yet with the face of a man. Described in texts that are over 2,000 years old, this man-faced animal has intrigued scholars and mythologists for generations. The most prominent reference to this strange creature appears in the Mahabharata, one of the two major Sanskrit epics of ancient India. In this text, there is mention of a being that possesses both human and animal features, its body resembling that of a beast, but its face unmistakably human. The creature's role in the epic is often vague, yet it is depicted as possessing an eerie presence, sometimes linked to the divine, sometimes to forces of chaos. What makes this creature even more intriguing is that similar accounts appear in the Vedas, the earliest known scriptures of Hinduism, dating back to approximately 1500 BC. These texts, revered for their spiritual and philosophical depth, speak of a world where gods and mortals frequently interact, where the boundaries between the natural and the supernatural are often blurred. Yet the mention of a creature so seemingly impossible, a man-faced animal, raises a number of difficult questions. Is it merely symbolic? A metaphor for some deeper truth? Or is there some kernel of reality hidden beneath this myth? The idea of human-animal hybrids is not entirely unique to Indian mythology. Cultures across the world, from ancient Egypt to the Americas, have legends of creatures that combine human and animal features, often possessing great power or otherworldly abilities. But the man-faced animal of India stands apart due to its specific description and its ambiguous role within the sacred texts. Was it a god, a demon, or something in between? For many years, scholars have suggested that the creature is symbolic in nature, perhaps a representation of the duality between civilization and nature. In ancient Indian philosophy, there was a deep understanding of the tension between the wild and the civilized. The Vedas and Mahabharata often depict gods and sages who live in a world that is in constant balance between order and chaos. The man-faced animal, then, could be a physical manifestation of that balance, embodying the liminal space where human and animal worlds meet. Such creatures may have been used to communicate the complex ideas of spirituality, the need for harmony, or the dangers of imbalance. Others have speculated that the creature is an allegory for human evolution itself. The ancient texts, with their intricate symbolism, may have been using the image of a man-faced animal to represent the transition from animalistic instincts to human consciousness. This theory posits that early human societies, grappling with the complexities of self-awareness, might have invoked such creatures to reflect their understanding of humanity's place in the natural world. But these explanations, while compelling, do not fully account for the detailed descriptions found in the texts. The Mahabharata does not simply refer to the creature in abstract terms. It goes to great lengths to describe the features of the animal, its body covered in fur, its powerful limbs, and most notably, its human-like face. The creature is neither fully beast nor fully human, a hybrid that suggests a deeper mystery. What was the ancient author trying to convey with this imagery? Was this creature merely symbolic, or did it represent something more concrete, something that may have existed in the distant past? Some have pointed to the possibility that the man-faced animal was an early attempt to describe encounters with real creatures that were unfamiliar to ancient peoples, perhaps an animal species that no longer exists, or one whose features seemed so extraordinary to the people of that time that they could not make sense of it. In this light, the man-faced nature of the creature might not be purely symbolic, but an actual description of an animal that lived in the ancient world and was later mythologized by the people who encountered it. There are other more fringe theories that stretch the imagination even further. Could the man-faced animal be an extraterrestrial being described in a way that ancient people could only comprehend through the lens of their own culture? In this theory, proponents argue that the being could have been an alien visitor, an entity whose form was so bizarre and unrecognizable that it was recorded as a hybrid of man and beast. This idea, of course, is highly speculative, and it requires us to consider ancient texts not as reflections of myth, but as historical documents describing real events. Then there is the most intriguing, albeit least explored, possibility that the man-faced animal was a figure tied to religious or esoteric rituals. The blending of human and animal forms in religious iconography has long been a feature of many cultures. In India, deities with animal attributes are common, from the elephant-headed Ganesha to the lion-faced Narasimha. Could the man-faced animal have been a divine messenger, a protector, or even a harbinger of important spiritual teachings, representing both human potential and untamed nature? The texts do not make this connection explicitly, but the ambiguity leaves room for speculation. Despite the many theories, one thing remains certain: the mystery of the man-faced animal continues to captivate the imagination. Was it a mythological creature, a product of ancient spiritual thought, a metaphor for human evolution or the tension between the wild and the civilized? Or perhaps, somewhere in the deep recesses of ancient India, there exists a forgotten history, one where man and animal truly met in the form of a creature whose legacy still lingers in the pages of sacred texts. As with many of the world's most enduring mysteries, the truth remains elusive. The Mahabharata and Vedas provide tantalizing glimpses into a world that defies our modern understanding. Perhaps, like so many other ancient stories, the man-faced animal is meant to be a puzzle, one that we may never solve, but that continues to invite us to ask the question: what else might be hidden, waiting to be uncovered in the shadows of ancient myth? As we continue our journey through history's strangest and most enigmatic stories, we turn our attention to a forgotten city, perched high on the cliffs of southern Arabia. A city built into the very rock, so meticulously crafted yet so utterly abandoned. The sheer scale of the location is staggering, its towering structures rising out of the desert landscape like silent sentinels, bearing witness to a time long past. This is the abandoned cliff city of Qaryat al-Faw, a place where ancient civilizations once thrived, but where, for reasons that remain unclear, life suddenly ceased. To approach Qaryat al-Faw is to enter a world suspended between myth and reality. The city, whose existence was lost to history for centuries, is located in the harsh, arid mountains of southern Saudi Arabia. The cliffs here are not just natural formations, but monumental feats of engineering, walls of stone that rise dramatically from the surrounding desert floor. From a distance, the site looks like a mirage, a place out of reach, caught between the earth and the heavens. As you step closer, the raw beauty of the city becomes apparent. The intricate architecture carved directly into the cliff faces speaks of a highly advanced civilization, one that knew how to mold the rock to their will, transforming it into homes, public spaces, and temples. Broad terraces overlook the desert expanse below, where the wind still howls through the narrow passages of ancient stone pathways. The remnants of walls, gates, and inscriptions adorn the rocks, hinting at a once thriving city that was, perhaps, far more significant than the world remembers today. Historical accounts suggest that Qaryat al-Faw was once a key settlement along the ancient trade routes that connected the Arabian Peninsula with the civilizations of Mesopotamia and the Levant. These routes were vital for the exchange of goods such as frankincense, myrrh, and other exotic spices, making cities like Qaryat al-Faw essential hubs in a vast, interconnected network of commerce and culture. The city's strategic location would have made it a crucial crossroads for traders, scholars, and religious pilgrims. Yet, despite the city's importance, Qaryat al-Faw was abandoned by the time the first travelers from the Mediterranean arrived in the region in the early centuries of the Common Era. The exact reason for this sudden disappearance has long puzzled historians and archaeologists. The absence of written records from the time makes it difficult to determine whether the city's fall was caused by warfare, natural disaster, or some other, more mysterious factor. The first signs of the city's abandonment are eerily clear in the archaeological remains. The city's grand structures, temples, and marketplaces were left behind, frozen in time, as if the inhabitants had vanished in the middle of daily life. No evidence of any large-scale conflict or destruction has been found, no signs of burning or large-scale combat. There are no mass graves or evidence of violent death, which makes the silence of the city all the more unsettling. One theory suggests that Qaryat al-Faw fell victim to a natural disaster. The region is prone to droughts, and there is speculation that a prolonged dry spell may have led to the collapse of the agricultural systems that sustained the city. However, the absence of water sources or any sign of catastrophic flooding or desertification casts doubt on this theory. Moreover, the inhabitants of Qaryat al-Faw would have likely been prepared for such a challenge, as ancient civilizations in the Arabian Peninsula were adept at adapting to harsh environments. They had built elaborate systems of water storage, wells, and irrigation, allowing them to survive in the desert for centuries. Others suggest that the city's abandonment might have been linked to a shift in regional trade routes. As the importance of the incense trade began to wane, new trade routes may have bypassed Qaryat al-Faw, causing economic decline. The city's once vibrant markets and trading centers may have fallen silent, with its people forced to leave in search of better prospects. Yet, the question remains, why did this shift in trade cause such an abrupt departure? Why were the inhabitants not able to adapt, as they had done for so long? As intriguing as these more conventional explanations are, there are theories that push the boundaries of what we know about ancient civilizations, introducing elements of myth and the supernatural. Could the city's abandonment have been tied to a religious or spiritual event? There are local legends that speak of the disappearing people, a group that vanished overnight after a divine sign or omen was received. According to these stories, the city's priests or elders foresaw a catastrophe and led the people away, abandoning the city in the face of an impending doom. These legends suggest that the city's abandonment was not just a practical decision based on economic or environmental factors, but perhaps a conscious choice made in response to divine will. It's also worth considering the possibility of a more esoteric explanation. Ancient civilizations, particularly those in the Arabian Peninsula, had deep spiritual connections with the land, the stars, and the unseen forces that they believed governed the world. Qaryat al-Faw may have been a place of great religious significance, and its abandonment might have been connected to a spiritual shift or transformation that was not tied to physical or material causes. Could it have been that the people of the city received a message from the gods, or perhaps a sign from the stars, that they interpreted as an order to leave their homes and their city behind? It's a theory that cannot be easily dismissed, especially in a region where religious beliefs and celestial phenomena were intricately woven into daily life. Another speculative theory revolves around the mysterious disappearance of ancient civilizations in the Arabian Peninsula. We know that the region was home to several advanced cultures that suddenly disappeared without a trace. Could Qaryat al-Faw have been a part of this broader pattern? The desert may hold secrets to a lost history, one that has been buried by time and shifting sands. As we stand before the cliffs of Qaryat al-Faw, it becomes clear that we may never fully understand what happened here. The grand city, now silent and abandoned, stands as a reminder of the mysteries that still remain hidden beneath the earth. Was it the forces of nature that led to its downfall, or was it something more? Was it the end of a once thriving civilization, or a deliberate spiritual departure from a place of power and knowledge? For now, the answers lie buried in the sand, waiting for the curious to uncover them. And so, as the wind whispers through the empty streets and the sun sets over the distant mountains, we are left to ponder. What truly happened to the people of Qaryat al-Faw? And what other mysteries lie hidden in the arid deserts of Arabia, waiting to be unearthed? In the heart of the ancient Nubian desert, buried beneath layers of sand and time, lies an enigma that has puzzled archaeologists and historians for centuries. A colossal, unfinished statue. Its immense size and the apparent care put into its creation suggest that it was meant to stand as a monumental testament to the power and ambition of an ancient kingdom. Yet, it remains incomplete, abandoned in the very process of its creation. This is the unfinished colossal statue of Nubia, a mystery that has quietly beckoned to those who are willing to look closer. The site itself is isolated, located in the rugged terrain of southern Egypt, near the border with Sudan, in what was once the heart of the kingdom of Kush. The statue's remains are situated in an area known as Jebel Barkal, a place of deep historical and spiritual significance. Jebel Barkal, with its towering cliffs and isolated grandeur, was once a center of worship, where the ancient Nubian rulers honored their gods, particularly Amun, the god of the sun. The very mountains themselves were thought to be sacred, and the royal cemetery, just a short distance away from the unfinished statue, was the burial ground of powerful kings and queens. When first uncovered, the statue was immediately recognized as being part of a grand, ambitious project. Standing approximately 33 feet tall, it was carved from the living rock, a feat of engineering that would have required extraordinary skill. The figure, believed to represent a Nubian ruler or deity, is depicted in a seated posture with a proud expression on its face. The details of its features suggest an artist striving for greatness, with intricate details sculpted into the stone, down to the folds of the figure's clothing. Yet, as the eye moves down the statue's body, it becomes clear that the work was abruptly halted. The torso, legs, and arms remain unfinished, leaving a striking sense of incompleteness, as though time itself had stopped in the middle of the work. This abandonment has led to a multitude of theories, each attempting to explain why such a colossal undertaking was left unfinished. The most straightforward explanation is the possibility of a change in leadership. The statue may have been commissioned by a ruler or dynasty whose reign ended suddenly, either through death or political upheaval. The workers, perhaps under new leadership or facing new priorities, may have simply been ordered to halt the project before it could be completed. Given the nature of ancient kingdoms, where power often shifted through violent or unexpected means, this theory seems plausible. However, The suddenness of the abandonment seems too dramatic to be merely the result of an ordinary political shift. A different theory proposes that the site was cursed or considered unlucky. There are many examples throughout history where the construction of monumental works was halted due to superstitions or fears. Perhaps, in the midst of its construction, something ominous occurred, an unexpected death, a series of natural disasters, or even a military defeat, that caused those involved to abandon the statue and its surrounding site. This theory is not without precedent in ancient cultures, where unfinished statues or buildings were sometimes thought to be cursed, their construction halted to avoid misfortune. Another possibility lies in the religious significance of the statue. Nubian rulers were known to have believed in the divine right to rule, and statues of gods and kings were often constructed as manifestations of their divine power. Could it be that the statue was intentionally abandoned before its completion to avoid the wrath of the gods? In some ancient cultures, it was believed that a statue, once completed, would become a vessel for divine power. An unfinished statue, by contrast, might be seen as incomplete or imperfect, rendering it spiritually impotent. Perhaps the statue's incomplete form held a deeper meaning, one that was never intended to be completed for religious or spiritual reasons. Yet, there is another, far more speculative theory, one that suggests the statue's abandonment may be linked to a greater mystery tied to the ancient Kushite kingdom itself. The kingdom of Kush, known for its remarkable achievements in art, architecture, and military power, disappeared from history in a manner that remains somewhat opaque. Could this statue, with its sudden cessation of construction, be a symbolic marker of the kingdom's eventual fall? The kingdom's decline is thought to have occurred over several centuries, perhaps in response to a combination of internal strife, external invasions, and the gradual loss of power to rising empires such as Egypt. Could this abandoned statue be a signpost, marking a pivotal moment in the Kushite civilization's decline? It's a question that is still very much open to interpretation. For now, the statue remains where it was left, standing in eerie silence, half-formed and incomplete. Its features, frozen in time, evoke a powerful sense of mystery. What was the grand vision behind its creation? Who was the ruler or deity it was meant to represent? And why was it abandoned in its moment of glory? The answers to these questions may never be known, but the statue itself, weathered by centuries of desert winds and buried beneath the sands of time, still stands as a silent witness to a lost chapter of history. As we examine the unfinished colossal statue of Nubia, we are reminded of the many mysteries that lie buried in the sands of ancient civilizations. What other monumental works of art, like this one, are waiting to be discovered? What stories of ambition, faith, and mystery have been lost to time? And perhaps most intriguing of all, what might still lie hidden beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself? The unfinished statue of Nubia, in its quiet majesty, reminds us that history is far from fully understood, and that some of its greatest secrets may still be waiting to be uncovered. The bronze map of the world, a once magnificent object of immense historical value, is a mystery that has persisted for centuries. Descriptions of the map date back to the 1st century BC, and while some records suggest it was created as a monumental depiction of the known world, its existence is nothing more than a tantalizing whisper in the corridors of ancient history. The map was said to have been crafted from bronze, an extraordinary material choice, considering the intricate details that would have been required for a geographical representation of the time. Its size, believed to be vast, suggested that it wasn't just an ordinary artifact, but a statement, a map that aimed to bring the farthest corners of the ancient world together in one sweeping view. Ancient geographers would have used it to represent the regions they knew, perhaps even including parts of Europe, Africa, and Asia, some of which would have been mapped with extraordinary precision for the time. The precision is what catches the imagination. A map cast in bronze, surviving the ages, echoing the ancient quest for knowledge of the world's expanse. Unfortunately, despite accounts from a range of classical historians, the map itself has never been seen by modern eyes. Its creation is thought to be commissioned by an unknown patron, an individual or group whose identity remains a mystery. Who would have undertaken such a monumental task, and why does no trace of it remain? One of the earliest references to this lost map comes from the Roman historian Pliny the Elder. In his Natural History, he mentions a map of the world created in bronze that was housed in the city of Rome, though he offers little in terms of specifics. Pliny describes the map in awe, stating that it was created for the instruction of future generations, and that it covered the entire world known to the Romans, from the edges of Britain to the deserts of Africa and the far reaches of the East. Yet, despite the grandeur of Pliny's description, no other records have surfaced confirming its details or location beyond his brief mention. As centuries passed, stories of the bronze map continued to circulate. Some suggested it had been placed in a public space, perhaps on a grand pedestal, where travelers and citizens could marvel at its depiction of the known world. Others claimed it had been displayed in a grand hall, perhaps within the imperial palace, where the emperors could examine their empire's geographical scope. Yet, by the time the map was referenced again in the Middle Ages, it had disappeared. Ancient texts alluded to its destruction, or at least its loss, but no clear answer as to what happened to it has ever emerged. Did it fall victim to the ravages of time and war, or was it hidden intentionally? The most perplexing element of this mystery is the identity of the patron who commissioned the map. Was it one of the Roman emperors, perhaps Augustus, who sought to immortalize the empire's vastness? Or was it a wealthy and ambitious individual hoping to make a personal mark on history? Given the map's scale and craftsmanship, it is likely that its creator was someone with both significant wealth and a desire for knowledge. Yet, no direct link to a patron has been uncovered, and scholars remain divided over this question. Some suggest that the map could have been the work of an unnamed geographer or philosopher who believed that understanding the world's layout was essential to governing it. Others propose that the map might have been a diplomatic gesture, a gift to a foreign ally or ruler, intended to demonstrate the power and knowledge of the Roman Empire. As we step away from the historical record and consider more speculative theories, the mystery deepens further. Some fringe theories propose that the map was not just a geographical tool, but an artifact imbued with mystical or symbolic importance. Could it have contained knowledge that transcended mere geography? Was it possible that the map, with its grand scale and intricate details, was intended to convey some secret or hidden knowledge, perhaps about the stars, the movements of the heavens, or even the mysteries of the ancient world that have been lost to us? This idea brings to mind ancient texts like the Tabula Rogeriana, a famous Islamic map from the 12th century, which incorporated not just geographical details, but also philosophical and scientific insights into the natural world. If such a map existed in the Roman era, could it have been used not just for practical purposes, but also for deeper, more esoteric understandings of the world? The bronze map's disappearance only adds to the intrigue. Did it fall victim to the flames of a burning city, perhaps during the sacking of Rome or another great catastrophe? Was it lost in transit, shipped off to some distant land where it was forgotten? Some have suggested that the map could have been hidden away by its creator, perhaps buried deliberately to prevent it from falling into the wrong hands or to preserve its knowledge for a future time. Others propose that it was dismantled, its bronze material repurposed for other uses, rendering the map's significance forgotten. What is clear is that the absence of the bronze map leaves a void in our understanding of the ancient world. Despite references in various classical texts, no physical evidence of the map has ever been uncovered. No archaeological digs have yielded fragments of it, no writings have clarified its whereabouts, and no cultural remnants have survived to tell its story. This absence raises more questions than answers, questions that linger in the minds of historians and archaeologists who continue to search for clues that might explain the fate of the lost map. Could the map be hidden in plain sight, tucked away in a forgotten archive or buried beneath layers of history, waiting for someone to find it? Or is it simply lost to time, a casualty of the ever-evolving march of civilization? Perhaps the true mystery of the bronze map is not just its disappearance, but the very fact that it once existed, hinting at a far grander vision of the ancient world than we may ever fully comprehend. As we continue to explore the cryptic, unexplained artifacts of the past, we are reminded that sometimes history itself can be more elusive than we ever expect. The bronze map is just one of many puzzles scattered across the landscape of human knowledge. What else might be waiting, still hidden, still unexplained, in the shadows of our history? In the fertile plains of ancient Gaul, beneath the shadow of the rugged hills and amidst the rolling forests, once lived a tribe known as the Veneti. This minor Gallic tribe, though not as famous as the fierce warriors of the Arverni or the Sequani, had a reputation for their intricate coastal trade routes and their strongholds near the coast of what is now modern-day Brittany in France. Yet, despite their role in the fabric of ancient Gaul, the Veneti vanished almost overnight, a disappearance so sudden and complete that it has puzzled historians for centuries. Unlike many tribes that have faded into obscurity due to the ravages of war or the expansion of a more powerful enemy, the fall of the Veneti was eerily quiet. There are no written records from the time suggesting a major conflict or even a significant internal struggle. The tribe, which had maintained a fairly visible presence along the northern coastline, simply ceased to exist. In its place, silence. No bloody battles, no betrayals or massacres, just an abrupt absence. Their disappearance is not mentioned in any major conflict or historical account, and even the most significant battles involving the Romans or the Germanic tribes make no reference to the Veneti in any notable context. This absence of documentation is part of what makes their extinction so intriguing. If they were simply overtaken by larger, more aggressive forces, why is there no record of it? If they had suffered a devastating plague, why is it not chronicled in the surviving texts of the era? To piece together the mystery of the Veneti, we must first look at their peak. The tribe was known for its strategic location along the coast of ancient Gaul, engaging in maritime trade and possibly controlling vital sea routes that connected Gaul to the broader Mediterranean world. Their ships, highly regarded for their craftsmanship, allowed them to interact with traders from distant lands, including the Celts of Britain and even the Mediterranean civilizations, like the Greeks and Romans. The Veneti were skilled navigators and traders. Their coastal strongholds, built on high cliffs and rugged terrain, offered both protection and dominance over the surrounding waters. It is said that they were particularly adept at managing the treacherous tides of the Atlantic coast. But, after a period of relative prosperity and stability, something changed. They suddenly vanished from the historical record, leaving no obvious trace of their fate. What makes this disappearance even more puzzling is the relatively close timing of their disappearance to Julius Caesar's campaigns in Gaul. The famous Veneti naval battle in 56 BC, which saw the tribe clash with Caesar's forces, could be the moment when the tribe's history would have turned a decisive page. In this skirmish, Caesar's legions, mounted on ships and aided by their Roman superior tactics, defeated the Veneti fleet in a remarkable battle, securing Roman control over the region. However, after this battle, no further historical accounts indicate the tribe's final downfall. The Veneti seemed to dissolve from existence without a trace. So, what happened to them after the Romans took control? Some historians argue that the Veneti were simply assimilated into the growing Roman Empire. With their military defeat and the establishment of Roman dominance over the region, it might have seemed logical for them to be absorbed into the broader Roman societal framework. Their distinct identity, however, appears to have vanished far too completely for mere cultural assimilation. If the Veneti had been absorbed, would there not have been remnants of their language, customs, or material culture left behind? Artifacts of their seafaring life, perhaps? This is where the mystery deepens. There are no surviving records of the Veneti being absorbed into any larger tribal confederation, nor is there evidence suggesting that their territory was taken over by another tribe or civilization. In fact, many regions that were once under the Veneti's control show no signs of battle or forced displacement, only gradual abandonment. It's as though the people simply left, without leaving any marks of violent destruction, retreat, or surrender. Could the Veneti have fled their homeland entirely, seeking refuge elsewhere? But where would they have gone, and why would such a sudden migration leave no trace? Or was there something far more catastrophic at play? Some speculative theories suggest that the disappearance of the Veneti may have been tied to environmental changes or a disaster, though this theory is not widely accepted. Could the tribe have fallen victim to a sudden and overwhelming change in climate or natural disaster that made their homeland untenable? The northern coastal regions of Gaul are known to have been prone to storms and sudden shifts in weather patterns, but there is no direct evidence to support such a theory. Another possibility is that the Veneti fell prey to disease, a scourge that could easily wipe out an entire population without leaving the typical signs of war or conquest. Plague, famine, or an epidemic could have decimated the Veneti people, leaving behind little more than a scattered and fragmented memory of their once thriving society. Yet, again, no historical sources from the time of Caesar mention anything about a plague or disease that might have affected the tribe. Then, there are the more fringe theories. Could the Veneti have encountered a far more mysterious force, one that caused their sudden disappearance? Some have wondered whether the tribe's sudden extinction might be connected to the mystical elements of the ancient world, the belief in curses, omens, or divine retribution. Did they, perhaps, provoke the wrath of some unseen power or force, leading to their disappearance without leaving any evidence behind? Could it be that the Veneti were simply erased from the record by some larger, unknown influence, leaving us to wonder what other lost histories might lie in wait beneath the surface of time? The truth about the Veneti's disappearance may never be fully understood. It is one of those rare and elusive mysteries of history that stubbornly resists explanation. And as we delve into the many enigmas of the past, we are reminded that not every story has a clear ending, and not every mystery is meant to be solved. What happened to the Veneti? Were they absorbed by Rome, or did they vanish into the shadows of history for reasons we may never know? Whatever the answer, the Veneti remain a powerful reminder of how much of our past is still hidden from us, waiting to be uncovered, or perhaps waiting to remain a mystery forever.